I'm good. I do. I recognize that. Hello, Blue Fire Poker people. This is Andres Pereira. Some of you might know me online as Andressoprano. And this will be the first video of what I expect to be a long-term collaboration in which I will try to share the few things I know about tournament poker. In this first video, what I want to do instead of going over a history review will be to introduce you guys into how I approach poker coaching. I want to set up the guidelines of what I believe should be the steps someone willing to study and succeed in multi-table tournaments should follow. My main focus when coaching is to show my students a path, whether it be the tools he will need, what a good schedule should look like, some basic vendor management, although I know there is so much reading about that particular that I will be very, very briefly with it. And finally, what I think are some of the essential reads available on the internet. I'm not going to go into poker books, but there's fantastic things to read about poker in general and tournament poker in particular for free in the internet. With this being said, the first thing that we're going to need to start building our poker empire are tools. And the fundamental ones are going to be this. Poker Stove, which most of you should be familiar with it, the ICN calculator, the full equity calculator, the probably most underrated and unused tool that is SharpScope, and finally Hold'em Manager or Poker Tracker or any kind of tracking software that there is available. Poker Stove is most of you are familiar with it. It's just I have here the software. It helps us to calculate people's ranges. It's been designed to assign someone a range because remember, when we're playing a hand of poker, we're not playing against the particular hand that our opponent has at each given moment. We're playing against the range of hands that we assume makes sense for him to have. Okay, so on Poker Stove we can do all kinds of combinations. If somebody is raising pre-flop, we can say, okay, this person's been raising. If we have a Hold'em Manager, for example, Poker Tracker, a heads-up display, we can say, okay, this person's been raising 15% of the hands. So what that means, which hands are those? We can put the number here on the bottom, and it highlights the hands that we are facing, and then we can calculate if it's, for example, an all-in from someone who we believe is showing that hand, those hands, and we have something like this: King, Queen suited, want to see or equity against that person's range. We have it there, and then we make decisions. Of course, we don't use it in game, we don't use it in play, but when we go to review our hands after session, which is something that also we are going to cover, we should be able to study this kind of stuff and see if we made some loose calls, we made some good calls, etc. Poker Stove is designed basically to be used in combination with other software. Like, for example, the ICN calculator, again, a software that many people is familiar with it, especially those who play singles should use it pretty much every day. Okay, so on the most well-known ICN calculator, or at least the one I've been using forever, is the Nash calculator, in which we input the details of a hand, and if we are in a money bubble or if we are at a fan table with page jumps, we introduce all the data that we have about a hand and see which ranges of hands that also we can visualize on PokerStop we should be either shoving or we should be calling with. I have a hand here from a fan table that I played on PokerStars, and $84 or $82, I believe it is, $82 Hyper Turbo multi-table tournament. So I want to see if my shove in this situation with 5 players left is correct. In order to do that, I had to input or in order all the stacks of the players involved at the beginning of the hand, the blinds, small blind, big blind, and the entry level. Okay, we do this in that turn, in that particular spot. The big blind was 4,000 chips, small blind was 2,000, the ante was 800, and the structure I copied right now from I opened a PokerStars lobby and I saw what the structure is when there's only 50 players. In this particular tournament there was over 200 players, so what I'm going to assign as a structure is not going to be completely accurate, but for the purpose of making this simple, let's go with what I have, which was 0, there we go, 0.4, which is 40% for first, 27% for second, 17% for third, 10% for fourth, and 0.8%, 8%, sorry, for fifth place. So with that in mind, I want to see if with the stacks distribution I should shove my ace-8 offsuit or not. So I'm going to put in order. The first player, it has 49,475. Second player has it's something nasty actually. This is a fairly tough, really tough final table actually. He has 86,509. Third player is me with 33,773. 12,564 for the small blind. And Trans Dupre has 60,898. Alright, so with the data introduced in the calculator, I go ahead and calculate what the ranges should be for each player to either shove or fold or make a call. Alright, I am on the bottom, so my range to shove according to the ICN calculator should be this one, 38.8% of the hands, which I have the hands put in there. You can see that it's any pair, any ace, king deuce suited plus, king 6 offsuit, blah blah blah. But if I want to actually sit here on PokerStop, I can just input 38.8, and there we go. There's always some discrepancies between what PokerStop has and what other software have regarding, for example, PokerStop does include pocket deuces and pocket threes here, and it does add some hands that maybe are not in the range. Okay, but we can make those adjustments. And I am supposed to show with those hands, and let's see what happens. I have ace-8, it's folded to me, I do shove. The small blind falls, and Trans Dupre calls with king 10 suited, which common sense says is a good call, okay? But we can see here that he is supposed to call pretty much with any pocket pair, 3 plus, ace 2 suited plus, ace 3 offsuit, king 9 suited plus, king 10 offsuit, blah blah blah. Now, and this is going to be fundamental in the way I will approach my videos, in the way I approach my coaching, in the way I focus poker, and is that everything we do every decision we make depends on who are we facing, who are we playing against, which means that we should not follow blindly what our calculator says. We use it as a guideline. But if I have different type of players on my table, maybe I will adjust. Maybe no, I will adjust my shoving ranges. And I will also adjust my calling ranges. Same will occur once we go to what the let me show you the for equity calculator, which I use a lot all the time. Okay, everything we use as a guideline has to be just that. It has to give us an idea of the things that can be done with certain hands. But nothing matters more than the fact that we need to know against who we use these tools, against who we make a move, against who we decide to play a hand, and how we play it. Okay, if anybody has more questions about the ICM calculator, just go ahead and you can in the thread that is going to come with this video, you can ask questions. But this is mostly something that any good sit and go instructor is going to have much more feedback about it. I just wanted to show that we should have a good knowledge of how to use this, and that's it. Now, the for equity calculator. This is a wonderful tool that not many people uses, and it has helped me a lot, and it has allowed me to show my students many things that we could have more problem to explain had we not had this tool available. This is available on a website that is called fpppro.com, which is owned, I believe, by people who's trying to give advice on how to become supernova elite on PokerStars. What are the steps that you, the limit at each limit that you play? What is the volume that you should play? If you play singles, you play this limit in singles, you should play this volume every day, blah blah blah, in order to acquire the points enough to become supernova elite, blah blah blah. Okay, what this tool does is to help us calculate how often a player who is raising a hand should fall to our shove in order for us to turn a profit. I'm going to try to illustrate this easily, and again we're going to use it in combination with PokerStars. I have a few hands saved because I want to put quite a few examples of how to use this tool. We're playing an MTT on PokerStars. We're on the small blind with 15 big blinds and 10 jacks suited. It's folded to a middle position player who raises. Now, we have played 171 hands with this player. He has 39 big blinds in his stack. He has been fairly active, playing 25% of the hands, raising 23% of them, opening 54% of the time when it's folded to him, and folding 50% of the time when someone has 3-bet or shove on him. So let's put those numbers on PokerStars. He has opened. This is going to be difficult to see for you guys because it's off screen. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. He has raised first in middle position. I'm going to try to show it here. I believe it's, yes. Raise first in middle position 32% of the time out of 25 opportunities he had. This can be a close idea or a fairly accurate idea, give us a fairly accurate idea of how often this player is raising in that situation. So if he raises 32% of the time when he is in middle position, we go to poker stove and we see that he's raising with any ace. Again, let's make some adjustments. If he's raising king 4, he's going to be raising deuces, 3s, and 4s. He's going to most likely be raising suited connectors like this. Maybe we can disregard some hands that he might not raise, like queen 7, king 4, king 5. And we're still on the king 8 offsuit, and we're still on the 33% range. Okay. Those are a lot of hands to raise. It's folded to me in the small blind, and I have 10 jack suited. Let's put the numbers of the hand in the calculator. Effective stack. What is my stack at the beginning of the hand? Or his stack if I had him covered. But in this case, I am the short stack. 16,763. What is my estimated equity when called? Not my estimated equity against his opening range. My estimated equity when he calls me. Let's see what he can call with. Let's say that he's going to call, remember, he's raising 32.7%, okay? Let's clear this. He's going to be calling me, I will assume, with most pocket pairs. I don't know if as low as pocket 5s, because I still have a lot of full equity. I have 15 big blinds, which is almost half of his stack. But let's put pocket 5s in there. Depending, that is going to also depend on what our risks are on that player, not just for what the numbers say, but maybe we have seen this player raise calling someone. Okay, and we have seen that he had a loose hand, a weak hand that maybe we will not have called with it, blah blah. But let's put it on a vacuum. Let's imagine that he calls with 5s plus. He probably is going to call with ace suited plus. He's most likely going to call with ace queen and ace king offsuit. I don't know about ace jack suited, but ace jack offsuit, sorry, but let's put it in there. I don't know about king queen suited, but we can also, it's going to depend on what his reads on me are, which right now I don't know. This range gives us an 8.7% of calls. 8.7% of calls. If we put this range against our 10 jack of hearts, which is the hand we have, it tells us that we have a 37.6% equity when we are called. So let's go to the calculator and say that our equity is 37.6%. What is the pot size before I shove? We see here on the top of the screen 5,492 chips. 5,492. And are we facing a bet? Yes, 2567. Now, once we calculate, we will see how often he should fall for us to show a profit. And remember, he's calling 8.7% of the time, let's say 9% of the time, but he's opening 33% of the time. which means that he's folding. We assume he is folding close to 70% of his opening range. Let's see what we need. Billion must fall at least 36% of the time. But we know that he doesn't fall 36% of the time, because 36% of the time would mean that he calls approximately 22%, I believe, something like that, 23%. All this. If he called him with King 7, Queen 8, Queen 9, Jack 9, King 9 offsuit, Ace 3, Ace 4, Ace 5 suited, all those hands, now we know he's not. So, the difference is big. He raises 32%, he calls close to 9%, and we only need him to fall a little bit over a third of his opening range. So when we shove here, we are making money regardless of what he does. If he wakes up with aces and we lose, we lose. But we're not playing against his pocket aces. We are playing against his range. And that we beat. Another example. We have a player opening on the cutoff. And this player on the cutoff, when it's folded to him, I'm going to move again the screen. When it's folded to him on the cutoff, he raises first 36% of hands. We only have 14 examples, and he raised 5 of them. But we can make an adjustment and say, okay, maybe here they say that when it's folded to him on this 33 number that you see on my heads-up display, say that when it's folded to him, he opens 33% of the time. All right, so now let's put this on PokerStove, all those hands. We also have a number here, the 67, that says that he falls to a 3-bet or a shove 67% of the time. That's quite a lot. But let's see how much we need. Let's put the hand on the calculator. Effective stack 102,361. Estimated equity of our hand. Let's see what he calls with. In this occasion I have again 15 big blinds. He has 60. So losing the hand against me is not going to hurt his stack as much as it would hurt the player in the first example. Okay? Let's say that he's going, let's clear this. Let's say that he's calling with pocket fours plus. And he's calling with the biggest suited aces, big offsuited aces, and probably he's going to call me with ace 9 suited, king queen suited, maybe even king jack suited. Again, it's going to depend on how he perceives me. We can even bring it down to ace 8 suited and king queen offset, which means that he will be calling me around 12% of the time. Let's apply that range against my hand, king jack of hearts. When he calls me, my equity is 38.7%. So, 38.7. What is the pot size after he raises? 29,890. 29,890. Am I facing a bet? Yes, 14,140. And let's go back to this. He's calling me 12%, but we say that he's opening at least 30% of hands. So to make it simple, if he's opening 36, we need him to fold 66% of the time. So he's folding, sorry, 66% of the time. So if he's opening 30 and he calls 12%, he's folding around 58, 57% of his opening range. Let's see what I need. Billion, same as the previous one, must fold 36% of the time. If he opens 32, he would have to be calling me over 60% of the time, which means he would have to be calling me with around 20% of his range. Is he calling with king 8, king 9? Well, if he calls with that, actually, I'm even happier, because now I'm almost 50-50 against his calling range. And considering the dead money in the pot, I am making the right move again. But again, it's going to be very difficult for him to call with king 10 offsuit, queen 10, jack 10 offsuit, jack queen offsuit, 9-10, jack 9, etc. So either way we look at it, because of the strength of my hand in this case, a shove is profitable regardless of the outcome of the hand. I have more examples of this, but I think that is covered enough. Okay. Again, as I say regarding the ICN calculator, if any of you have any type of doubt about this, just ask and we can develop more or discuss in the forum, etc. Now I want to talk about my personal favorite tool this available, which is SharpScope. I assume that most of you read poker forums and have read many times when someone posts a hand for discussion, they say, okay, so I played this hand against this player and I went to official poker rankings and I look him up and he has shown a 50% positive ROI with $25,000 profit and an average buying of $30. Well, fantastic, that's a winner player. But how he made his money? Is this a consistent winner? Or is this player someone who hit that $50,000 score and it was the only good score he ever had? Of course, yes, we have that information also on official poker ranking because it shows you the biggest score someone had. But we don't see a graph. It's very hard to imagine how that person actually made his money. We really don't know how this profit was created, from where it come. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how a SharpScope advanced search on a player can pretty much tell us how this person plays. I have looked for sorry for this blue mark, I couldn't find the right eraser for this, but it's okay. I just don't want to show anybody's names here. Let's look at this player. He's someone who works with me, so I know pretty well now how he plays, but I already had a good idea when he talked to me for the first time and gave me his screen names and I looked for his results. This player has played 53,883 games with an average profit of 93 cents, average stake of $13, average ROI of 22%, total profit $49,900. Good. I can see that on OPR too. But if I do an advanced search, I can look for this player's results on Seed and Goes alone. And look what it shows. Over 46,000 games, 22% ROI, $75,000 profit. So if I'm playing a Seed and Go with this person, I will assume that he knows a lot about showing ranges. He knows a lot about ICM, so if we don't find a table, I assume that his calling and showing ranges are going to be very close to optimal. And I also going to assume what his opening ranges are when he raises from early position at the beginning of a Seed and Go. But if I look at this player's scheduled tournaments results, I see that he lost $25,000. And although his ROI appears positive, this is because of the discrepancy between the buying levels that he might play. So let's look at this player's graph on Seed and Go, and let's see how he plays. Let me find it. Bear with me for 1 second. I have it here. This is his overall graph. As you guys can see, for over 30,000 games, he was on an winning stretch. And then around game 33,000 approximately, he starts an 8,000 games downswing that actually cost him half of his profits. He goes from almost $70,000 in profit to $35,000 in profit. And then he recovers over $15,000 from that. How that happened? Did he have a bad run in Seed and Goes? Let's look at his Seed and Go graph. Here we have his Seed and Go graph. I don't see any $25,000 or $30,000 downswing here. I see a very steady graph from someone who probably plays 25 tables because he has played 45,000 Seed and Goes. So again, I don't see the problem here. I don't think that his showing range all of a sudden worsened, or now he doesn't know how to play Seed and Goes. Let's look then at his overall scheduled tournament graph. Oops, this is different. Way different, actually. He started losing $17,000. Then he had some scores, and he made $15,000 profit. So he made actually $35,000 in like apparently a few days, because with the volume that this guy plays, that's a few days. And then he went down. Now I am curious about something. How this guy has been doing in turbo scheduled tournaments. Here's his graph. I can see that where he made his profit in tournaments, where he recovered from that big deficit of over $15,000 and he turned a $20,000 profit, was in turbo MTTs. And after that, he has been breaking even, losing, blah, blah, blah. I can also assume by looking at this that this player, because of the big variance that he's seen in turbo MTTs, contrary to the steady profit he makes in 180 player Seed and Goes, he's going to be playing big fields MTTs where variance is huge. Let's see at his miscellaneous data. Yes, there we go. Average entrance on his scheduled tournaments, over 2,000 players. We're gonna go over this later. Keep this in mind. This is a lot of people to have as your average field size. So, last, I want to see these players non-turbo scheduled tournaments graph. Look at this. He actually, except for a few scores here and there for a few $1,000s, he is a steady loser in non-turbo tournaments. And I'm going to assume that most of these tournaments are warranted ones, because it's what the majority of people plays, and it's what his average entrance in tournaments tell me. That he's playing warranted tournaments. Those tournaments start with 3,000 chips. Think about it. Pause the video if you want, and tell me where the problem of this player lies, where he struggles. He has huge issues playing post-flop poker. He has huge issues managing a stack over 40 big blinds. He doesn't adjust to post-flop play. He is lost. This is a player that, regardless of his overall profit of almost $50,000, I will not fear playing post-flop against. So when someone, going back to the beginning of all this, when someone posts in a forum or asks you on Skype or AM or whatever messaging device software you use, say, hey, take a look at this hand, and look, I OPR this guy, and he's $50,000 in profit over a large sample size. So he's good. He's good in some areas. He's not as good in others. That's the difference between using SharpScope and pretty much any other tracking software available. It's more accurate than a heads-up display, unless you have thousands of hands with a particular player. But also, the problem that you have when you're playing tournaments and you have a heads-up display is that it doesn't tell you what that player is doing with each big blind at each big blind level. What he's doing with each stack size. What he does with 10 big blind. What he does with 15. What he does with 30. What he does with 50. What he does with 100. It can tell you, okay, this guy, let's look at anybody's numbers here. Okay, this one. So I don't have many hands. Yeah, I have 200 hands on this one, on this player. All right. So it's telling me that his BPMP is 21%. Okay, with which stack sizes? Does he plays 21% of hands when he has 200 big blinds? Does he plays 21% of hands when he has 15 big blinds? I'm pretty sure there's going to be a difference there. It says that his pre-flop raise is 18% overall. With what stack sizes? I don't know. I have played 200 hands with this guy. Maybe we started the tournament together if this was a turbo. So he has had 200 big blinds at the beginning. And now he has, let me see, 52. He still has a good stack, actually. What is his 3-bet percentage? 12%. Against which stack sizes? And with which stack sizes? I don't know. What is his continuation bet post-flop? As the preferred raiser, he bets 75% of the hands. Well, let me just say something about this. If somebody opens with a 16 big blind stack, is most likely to have a strong hand than someone who and C bet than someone who opens with a 200 stack big blind stack from the cutoff, and the another one with 16 big blinds is opening from under the gun +1. So these continuation bet numbers are not really telling me much. But if I go here, or I look at every single one of the graphs, I'm not saying that we do this in game. Okay? I'm not saying that we open all these while we are playing. Although I do when I'm facing a decision and I don't have too many tables open. I do an advanced search on players. Or if I have been playing pots with someone, at break I do it. In fact, I shard scope every single one of the people at my tables every time I have a second. And I look at the graphs. And if the graphs look suspicious in some way, like this one, I want to see where this guy got his downswing. And it happened that in his main game he didn't have a downswing. It's just that he started to try new games, but he is lost. So I'm going to adjust to that. And I'm going to know a lot more about this player than I would with any other type of tool. I want to make clear that I don't have any kind of endorsement with ShardScope, okay? It's just that I really, since I discovered ShardScope on April 8th, 2008, the day that I had my first coaching session with Jennifer, since I discovered that tool, I've been a fanatic of it. I'm going to say the same that I did while we were going over the ICN calculator, over the full equity calculator. If you guys want to know more stuff about how to use ShardScope, we can go over more stuff actually. I can show you something very quick. I can show you when this guy with a short stack is more dangerous. These are his 180 player sit and go finish positions. It goes all the way, but I'm just going to use the latest positions. Okay? If you guys look at this graph, you will know why he has such an amazing high rate of first place finishes. Wanna see how? This is easy. Look at his 46th, 47th, 48th finish positions, but especially 46th and 47th. He busts a lot in there. Why? Because he's playing six-handed. Because at 45 players left, which as you see is a very low rate of elimination, he's playing in the last 5 tables of the tournament, he's playing full ring. But with 46 and 47th, he's playing 6 max, 7 in some. Which means that this guy is going to be extremely aggressive when folded to him on the hijack, on the cutoff, and especially on the bottom. Let's go back to his 36th place finish. It's much lower than his 37th and 38th for the same reason. 37th, 38th place finish, he's playing 6, 7-handed. 36, he's playing full ring. He goes down from 35th, 34th, 3rd, 32nd, blah, blah, blah. Then there's a peak at 29th. It stays steady when he goes down to 3 tables. But now it grows again at 20th, 21st, 22nd. Okay, like most single players, he's gonna have quite a bit less on the pure bubble than he does in the first place elimination, because he's tried to at one point he make a couple fours just to cash. But let's look at his finish positions in 11th, 13th, 14th. 13th he has very few, but this can be just a statistical anomaly. But he has a lot more eliminations in 11th, 13th, 14th play than he does on 15th, 16th, 17th, because he shoves a lot more when he's short-handed. And he doesn't care much, actually, about squeezing into the final table, because what he does is try to accumulate as many chips as possible, as he has been doing when there were 37, 38 players left, when there were 46, 47 players left, because he wants to be on the top 3 chip stack when he reaches the final table. And when he goes to the final table, look how beautiful the graph looks. From 8th up, it looks up, 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 and what he does the most is finish 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, by far his most repeated finish position. So, you know what? If I am playing, if I had this guy at my table and I had to play post flop with him, especially in position, I'm going to take a lot of flops against him with a lot of hands, because I would be able to range him precisely, and I will be able to stack him off when he has an overpair to the board or stuff like that. But when we get to short stack play, I know I cannot abuse shoving on him, because his calling ranges are going to be close to optimal, are going to be almost perfect. I cannot abuse this guy on that regard. Same as when he shoves on me, I'm going to have to adjust my calling ranges and call this guy much lighter than I would call someone who doesn't play singles at all. I would like to pause the video here. We're going around 50 minutes already. And in the second part of these introductory videos, we're going to go over some Hold'em Manager basic analysis, something about vendor management, and things that I would like people to read. Also, I have not been talking, about planning your session. So all that we're going to cover on the second part of this video. Thank you very much. I hope you guys didn't get extremely bored. This was Andressoprano for BlueFirePoker.com.